Welcome to the Own Your Time podcast. This is the host, Kyle Marcotte, and today we have Eric Wedoe on the show. Eric Wedoe is the founder of a private equity firm called Financial Freedom Investing. Prior to real estate, Eric spent a significant amount of time in the financial sector with the Hartford, Scottrade and Ameriprise. He has an MBA from Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota, and a bachelor's degree in business, marketing, and management at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Yeah, of course. So I know you pretty well. You've been a student of mine for a little bit now, but I want you to share with the listeners kind of your story, where you're at now, and how you got to where you are.
I come from the financial background, like you mentioned, especially in the beginning of my career. I think it really all stemmed back from just my parents. They were two very hardworking baby boomers, both putting in like 60 hours per week. Both were in the retail industry. Unfortunately for them, they just kind of lacked the knowledge and understanding on where to invest and grow their money and grow their wealth. So I think, that was just a starting point for me, because I know that they aren't the only ones that didn't know how to really create financial freedom for themselves. And honestly, my mother's still working and she's approaching 65. They just got hit by the stock market a few times. They didn't know any other vehicles other than the stock market and their 401ks to invest. I knew I was going to go into business, and then I started down the financial path, and I had internships both at Ameriprise and Scottrade. And then my first job out of college was with the Hartford, working in their mutual fund department. And it was honestly like the most boring job you can imagine. Just incredibly boring. Was not enjoying it one bit. Just crunching numbers all day and trying to help people grow their, accounts 3 to 5% annually is no fun. So I realized that wasn't for me and went down the sales path, and have been doing that for quite a while now, and have been enjoying it immensely. And I've been in the real estate world for about 7 years now, and have been enjoying it. Created a ton of new relationships that have led me to the point of starting my own private equity firm.
That's awesome, man. So we did touch a little bit on how you used to work in the financial sector quite a bit, and you briefly touched on how boring it was and how you're not really growing the accounts too much. But why real estate? Why did you make that transition other than those 2 points, or is it really just a lot of those 2 points?
You're on the right path here. I really, for the most part, I realized through my education and just learning from various different types of sources and others, over the last 15 years, the average stock market return has been about 7%, which seems like a decent number, but honestly, when you dig into it, it's not even 7% because of market volatility and the various fees that can occur, taxes, inflation. Most people only take home 2 to 5% on their average returns, which is just not anywhere near what people need to become financially free or even create a generous amount of wealth. So through various education tactics, I've realized that the better option for me, in that I want to pass on to others, is investing in different types of syndications, which is what I do. I build relationships with various operators and help educate and teach others the value of investing in multifamily or self-storage and soon to be industrial type real estate syndications. And, the differences are immense. The amount of security you have with the real estate, which is a physical asset that has stood the test of time, the ability to invest in, we only invest in opportunities that have a 15 plus annual return, 15% plus, and then you can have passive income and cash flow, which we pay out usually quarterly. And you also get immense tax benefits through depreciation, and we're able to combat inflation by raising rents. Those are just some of the ongoing benefits of investing in real estate syndications.
Yeah, those are definitely huge benefits. 15% annual return instead of 2 to 5, and then you also have all the tax benefits that you're saving. So real estate seems like a no-brainer. But you did mention one thing, which is that you've been networking quite a bit with operators. So do you have any tips on getting started? Because someone like you who's relatively new to the syndication space, you've done such a great job of networking. You have a tremendous network so quickly. So do you have any special tips on how to do those kinds of things?
I think everybody thinks that networking is Traditionally, you have to meet someone in person and shake hands at like a meetup or a conference or something of that nature, and that's just not really the case, obviously, anymore, especially with the whole pandemic. So my LinkedIn connections is now up to like 18,000 plus. And that's just been part of what I do for real estate. Really, it's just networking with a purpose, finding the people that you really want to connect to and reaching out to them. I use LinkedIn a substantial amount. I also use Facebook Messenger, but I'm just a huge fan of like personal development and learning from others. Actually, recently, a couple of years ago, I joined a mentorship group called M1. And that's run by Rock Thomas, who's a mentee of Tony Robbins. I'll just give them some shout outs real quick, I guess. But what it is it's a tribe of in-group of people who are seeking that first-time millionaire status. And I just noticed by being in this group, just being around similarly minded people who have immense positivity is super powerful. And I would recommend people join that type of group, or at least surround themselves with those type of people as much as they can.
So how do you overcome that fear of actually reaching out, though? Because you've joined some awesome groups, you have a huge LinkedIn network base, and it is super important to network online, and you obviously understand that more than most people. So how do you actually overcome that fear, though, and click send on those messages?
It's about training that muscle, and the more you do it, the more you're able to overcome that fear. I try to use acronyms whenever possible. And one that I use for fear is face everything and rise. If I keep telling myself that, so much easier to just tackle it head on and overcome that voice in your head that can pop up every once in a while. And I know people have various fears, whether it's like public speaking or reaching out to someone on LinkedIn or asking a girl out or becoming an entrepreneur. I mean, there's just an immense amount of things that, come up in our inner, voice in our head will just say, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, you want to stay comfortable, because safety in our nature is where we like to be, right? We want to be safe. But if we choose love over fear and just loving the challenge and the after feeling of completing a task or a challenge that we see and overcoming that fear is immensely more powerful than anything that you would do to keep safe in your safe zone. So that's the way that I've looked at it, and that's the way that it really works well for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. And loving the feeling afterwards. I mean, the best moments in life are often when you do overcome fear. That's something I've noticed. I'm sure that's something that you've noticed as well. So as far as once you've overcome that fear, there does become a process of like continual education. And from my relationship with you so far, I've noticed that you're always seeking education. So I guess one thing would be, how are you working on your continual education right now? What weaknesses are you working on? And what tips do you have for people to continually educate themselves as well?
With me, I look at various different types of aspects to continue educating. And one of them is just reading. I read a book like every 2 or 3 weeks on various topics that I'm looking to increase my knowledge and understanding of. I also follow a lot of thought leaders in the real estate investing space, among other spaces. I listen to some podcasts quite often. I'm on LinkedIn connecting with various new people. I like to actively network with like 2 to 3 new people per week. That's like a common weekly goal for me. So just constantly learning from, the various types of materials that are put out there, educational materials, and just from others. Connecting with people is so easy these days. So it just takes, networking with purpose, which I talked about before. And that's what I really have found to take me to this new level that I've reached here recently, is just a lot of the network that I put together.
So yeah, is there anything that you're currently working on within this continual education that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, sure. Most recently, I've been learning about how to use virtual assistants. And I'm reading The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss right now. And also I've been learning a little bit from yourself and Neil Bawa, just to name a few. But VAs were like unheard of a couple years ago, and now you can utilize Upwork among other resources to free up your time and get systems in place So you don't have to be working those 60-hour work weeks or, even 40. You get these systems and people in place to really free up your time so you can do the things that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it really helps with your scale as well. And from my personal experience with VAs, I've realized that they're actually better than me at a lot of the tasks that I used to do myself. So not only am I freeing up time, but I'm getting higher quality performance. Like if you go and look at my social media right now, my Instagram, the last probably 10 to 15 posts are markedly better than the ones prior. And you can tell that's when I hired people to do it for me. And they're, much cheaper than American employees, and they do an amazing job. And if you get a scaffolding around them, that's an organized system that helps them to move forward, then you can scale your business really, really fast. And you don't even need to have an office space. You don't need American employees. You don't need all the craziness. You just use a great platform called Upwork, and you're typically off to the races there. So what is one thing in real estate that you really struggled to learn when you just first got started? If there was one little thing in real estate that you could just download immediately into people's heads, what would that be?
No one's going to do the work for you. You're not going to get handouts. It's about taking the initiative. So start networking, start learning. There's so many ways to learn these days, whether it's podcasts or joining a group or hiring a coach like yourself. The opportunities are never ending. So start learning and networking with purpose.
Yeah, just get started. Just jump off the cliff. You're never going to be ready. The longer you wait, all you've done is just waited longer. You're still going to feel just as fearful and uneasy no matter how long you wait. It's always really hard to jump off, so you might as well do it today. You did mention something about coaching, and I will take this opportunity to do like a slight shameless plug here, but the one thing that you do very well that I've noticed is you invest in yourself, not just with me and my coaching, but also with M1 and various other things. So what is the power of investing in yourself financially? Why is it so important to do that?
Yeah, I think we all have things that we can work on consistently, whether they're, for me, just looking at, the past few years, I didn't really have a budget in place. I always knew kind of where I was spending my money, but I never really had a tight budget. And since joining M1 and learning more about fundamentals and just to become wealthy and financially free, I now have a budget in place that I practice pretty religiously, and it doesn't like restrict me from doing the things that I want to do, but it assures me that I know where I'm putting my money and where I want to get to is according to my goals. I usually set quarterly goals just because I feel like 90 days is a good amount to have a goal in place, and then I reverse engineer it. Another thing that I always do is just level up. I wanted to level up my peer group, so I continue to do that as I've done the past 2 years.
Yeah, and sometimes leveling up is really necessary to just take that leap and invest in yourself. And there is such an amazing thing that happens when you do take that leap. The universe, number one, rewards you. And I think, honestly, it's just because you start to see yourself as something of value in which to be invested in. And I think that mindset shift in itself is a really big shift. But also it does give you access to people who are on the level that you want to be at so that you can actually start to ask them questions of, hey, can I just do what you did? Because you got where I wanted to go, and I know that if I do what you did, that I'll do the same thing, right? So that is another just absolute way to skyrocket your success. So the last question that I ask pretty much every guest on the show is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to a 20-something who is starting in real estate or business?
I would, the one piece of advice I would give is, find and follow those experts in the industry that you want to get into and learn from them. There is no reason that what any successful person is doing can't be replicated and really even improved. It just takes time and knowledge and confidence. Moving on that, I think your network is truly your net worth. So build it, cherish it, and foster those relationships, because if you do that, you will see the improvements and advantages in your life.
Experts and networking. Big tips for sure. So last thing is, where can people reach you online if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I can also be reached via Facebook, and my website is financialfreedominvesting.com. That's my private equity firm, and there's an ebook on that website that happy to provide anyone who's looking to learn more about passive investing and various syndications.
Amazing. And yeah, all those links will be below in the show notes if you guys are interested in checking them out. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Eric. You've been an awesome guest.
I appreciate it, Kyle. Always a pleasure.